Welcome to the Honest to Goodness podcast, where we give you our honest opinions on good entertainment. I'm your host, Kerri, and as always, here's my co-host, Morgan, and we are joined by a very special guest, Miss Charlotte Hegele. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Gold star, 10 points to Gryffindor.
Yes. I was like, I was going to screw this up so bad.
Hufflepuff? What are you, Hufflepuff or Gryffindor? Are you into Harry Potter?
I am I took the test. I am a Ravenclaw.
I'm a Ravenclaw.
Ah!
There you go. There you go. I do not know. So that is a good question.
I'll try and get you to do the quiz. I kind of just did it out of fun. I haven't watched movies in a long time. So.
Okay. All right. Listen, I finally watched the Chronicles of Narnia. Okay, we're working my way through stuff.
I actually
such a fabulous movie. I absolutely love those movies.
Me too. They're so good. And for like the CGI to be the way that was even back, because it wasn't that long ago, but at the same time, when you look at how things are now, even back then, it's impressive how they are.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure y'all recognize Charlotte as Julie Thatcher from When Calls the Heart. So obviously we'll be discussing that and just what's going on in your life these days.
I am visiting Vancouver. I'm just doing things, hanging out with people. I haven't been on a plane since COVID started, so that was interesting. I have been working with floral designs. I actually designed this right here.
So pretty. So
I've been working at a flower shop for about a year, or no, more than a year. And but beyond that, I'm still auditioning, still acting. I was on a TV show called Mayday. I did an episode of that in Toronto a few months ago. And I've been also writing a lot of poetry and short stories and doing a lot of art. So I've been doing that as well. And then constantly on Instagram.
Yeah.
Always on Instagram.
I love how you're kind of dipping yourself in all kinds of areas when it comes to being just an artist, like whether it's singing, you're painting, you're writing, you're acting, you're kind of just doing it all.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I do a lot of things, but it's also like I've learned at this point, I'm 31, that just because you hit a certain age, it doesn't mean you should stop learning or being curious about what might interest you. So try crocheting. Why not? Like try doing floral design, and it may very well spark some sort of creative part of you that then becomes this whole new, not necessarily a career, but this whole new self-expression. And I fully support that at any age.
Oh yeah.
What I've been doing over COVID, because I was going a little stir crazy.
Right.
I think.
Yeah, I feel like everyone kind of dipped into their artistry during COVID, whether they wanted to or not. They were kind of just doing it so they didn't go insane.
I started out doing puzzles. That's a
good place to start.
Everyone else went through baking. I was like, I've done the baking thing. I'm going to start focusing on puzzles. And then about a week in or 2 weeks into doing like 3 puzzles, I was like, okay, I need to do something else. I I need to do something else. So I've been working on weaves. I've been doing flower design. I've been painting. I've been drawing. I paint little like Russian dolls, like the nesting dolls.
Oh yeah, the nesting dolls. Yes.
Oh
wow.
Yeah, so I've been doing all sorts of fun creative stuff, and then I also still sing. I play the guitar, and then every week in acting, it's one of those careers where there's a lot of stuff that goes on sort of behind the scenes. I audition, I kid you not, every week, one to 4 times a week, and I get a role. I've gotten maybe 2 roles in the last 2 years. So sometimes you go through phases where you're constantly trying to get the work, but it's not necessarily landing, but you know you're doing a good job because they'll ask you to see you for other parts. I was actually on hold for a really, really big role a few months ago, and it went to another actress last minute.
Oh no.
I was so excited. I don't know if I can actually say what it was. I think I can. Well, it went to someone else, so I don't see why I wouldn't, but do you want to hear what it was?
Sure.
Absolutely.
That was for one of the reoccurring leads of Star Trek.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was
That's
very
amazing.
And I went to another actress, but it was we did a couple callbacks for it. It was just really exciting to know that they were interested in me. So it's nice to know, but it's like you still want to get the part. You still want to be able to like do the work.
Right.
Yeah.
And that always probably helps also with acting is whenever you kind of put all these other things under your belt. Because especially when you're auditioning for a specific character, maybe you audition for a character who can play the guitar, or you audition for a character who can paint. So that kind of helps with your portfolio.
Exactly. You want to put all that stuff on your resume.
Mm-hmm.
So I, for example, put that I sing, play the guitar. I said that I rode horses, which I think is one of the reasons why I ended up getting on One Calls the Heart. That was a lie. I rode a horse maybe 3 times prior to it. Like I had taken a horse riding like a workshop, but I hadn't actually ridden horses. So I remember them being like, "Oh, you can ride a horse." I was like, yes, I can. But then I was like, "Can
someone else?" I feel like someone else on the on What Calls the Heart also lied about that, and I can't remember who. But I remember
Tribbiani did, like from Friends, Joey Tribbiani. He's like, "I can drink a gallon of milk in like 30 seconds or 10 seconds." Yeah, that's what I did, and I've learned now. And so I did it again. I wrote that I could ice skate because I took ice skating lessons when I was like 10, like 6 to 10. Anyway, so my agent called me up. She said, "Hey, like you're being considered for this role, and it says that they have to ice skate really well. Can you ice skate, or is this a horse situation?" And I was like, it's definitely me on a horse again. So I tried practicing this year with my boyfriend Aaron, who used to play hockey like in college, or he got a scholarship for hockey, and he was trying to teach me how to skate again. I can't skate. I can't do it. Ooh, and like, ooh. So it's one of those interesting things that if you want to be an actor, here's my advice: constantly be keeping up with other things, like be it martial arts, fencing, tennis, like anything, golf. Like they will like get a call. You'll get a call one day and say, can you actually play? Can you actually ice skate? Can you actually play golf or tennis? And then you say, "Yes, I can," and I'll look good doing it, and I know what I'm doing. So it's.
I feel like also people kind of almost like it's so easy for them to be like, "Okay, I'm kind of used to people lying on their resume, so I need to make sure that you're telling the truth on this." Because I remember, like, I'm like, again, I said I'm a Marvel nerd, and I'm very much love the behind the scenes stuff. I love watching interviews of actors doing interviews and things like that, and like learning their process and learning what happened, like how they got the role and things like that. And I remember Tom Holland was sitting down with Robert Downey Jr. and different ones, and they were going back to like his audition or something like that, and they were like, "Can you actually do a flip?" And he's like, "I just sent you like 1 million self tapes of me doing flips in my living room for like the past 6 months, and you're asking me this right now? Did you watch the self tapes?"
And that footage. You know,
like, did you ever get that footage? Did I send it to the wrong company? Like, what's going on? But he did do it, and he did get the role. But it's like
I don't normally lie on my resume, but it is one of those things where I started acting when I was 17. So at the time, you're like, oh, I ice skated a few years ago. I can say I ice skate, or I did a whole like thing with horses for school. I can say that I've ridden horses. And then all of a sudden you're like older and you're like, I haven't done that in years. So it's
You've forgotten to take it off your resume.
And my aunt puts it really nicely. She said, everything you do in life, it's like you have your toolbox and it's just one more tool you put in your toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nice saying.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I think through COVID, I think a lot of us kind of realized how important self-growth was. And I think you realize those things that it might not seem like a big deal at the time, but later on it might help you get that role, or, you know, whatever, that you're just like, I don't know, I was bored and I picked up some knitting needles and started, you know, whatever, you know, but any self-growth is not wasted. It doesn't matter what it is.
I'm not even kidding you. There was a show I worked on where one of the actresses had to knit something throughout the episode. And she was asking me, because I was knitting at the time, she wasn't. So she's like, am I purling correct? Like, am I doing this correctly? And I was looking over like, yeah, it's good. It's good. It's legit. You're doing good. But you know what I mean? It's like every single skill, you never know what's going to translate then to a scene or a part or something. So just constantly be curious and interested and wanting to like push yourself to learn something new. Because what's the worst that could happen? You know?
That's true.
Yeah, I think the worst thing that can happen for a creative person is to get comfortable in their creativity and to no longer want to grow in that, and to discover something new, you know.
No, that's a fabulous way of putting it. And that's why I know a lot of actors. I take a lot of acting classes. I haven't in the last year or the last 2 years because of COVID, but I've been doing them online. And in person, no, I know actors who you would be shocked. You'd be like, that person's taking an acting class. It's like, yes, they may have won however many awards they may have been on however many movies, but they're still challenging themselves. Because if you stay stagnant and stale, then you get comfortable and then things start to plateau. Or
well, not only that, but you also probably, I feel like also when you're in, like, when I can only assume, like, by the way things are happening, for instance, you talking about your auditions and how so far you've only gotten like maybe 2 roles since you've been auditioning. It's a very competitive world, and you can be easily trampled and thrown out because you're not staying up to date on the new trends. You're not staying to date on the new, you know, scenarios and things, like the new teachings.
So competitive. And to know as well, there was I took an acting class, and one of the gentlemen that I was working with was saying, this work I'm telling you to do, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do the script analysis. You don't have to take and like I have done so many different, I've done Meisner, Chekhov, like I've done so many different types of techniques, and I've kind of like created a way of doing it for myself when I get a part to like, or get an audition to flesh it out. And he's like, you don't have to do this work. It takes hours. It'll take you'll sleep for 4 hours before an audition, but you'll do all this other work. You don't have to do it. But the 2% of actors who are constantly booking will be doing it. And it's like, noted. Like I am going to be doing this now for the rest of my career because I want to be booking. I want to be working.
Right. And you even kind of get in your mindset, like they probably aren't even using this technique. They probably have their own thing, or they're probably doing a bunch of ad-libbing and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, but they're 9 times out of 10, you're wrong. 9 times out of 10, they're doing exactly what you're being taught to do right now, and you're not. Yeah.
My thing is like when it comes, and I was working with one coach, Dixie Seidel in Toronto, and she is fabulous. She helped me get Bomb Girls, which was one of my biggest roles. She's so wonderful. And she was saying, when I was telling her, I was like, so when I get this audition, I was like, at the time I was only 20. So I was like, I was like in her studio working with, or in her house, but in her studio in her house. And I was like, okay, so I've looked up all the producers and I watched all the episodes of things that they've worked on. And then I looked up the head director and I figured out what kind of like style they like to do. And then I looked at Nick Tilley's reel, and I was like telling her, and then I did all this work, and she was like listening to all the work that I'd brought in. She was like, Charlotte, this is like a lot of work. And I was like, yeah, but I don't want to step on the day. So that's the thing. You step up on the day and forget it. Mm-hmm. Like you throw it away, you throw it over your shoulder as if it never happened. But it's the foundation that you build a good scene on. So, and then that's the thing. Sometimes when you're working, you only get 1 or 2 takes. Mm-hmm. And that's not an exaggeration. They're so pressed for time. So you want to be able to come in, do something, and they'll go, wow, you nailed it. Let's move on. And that takes all this unseen preparation. That can take a long, long time to do. But it's the joy of the process. So that's another thing I recommend to people. You have to enjoy the process that you go through. It's not necessarily the episode airing and having like my mom or my friends go, oh my gosh, that was such a good episode. It's the process that I learn my line. I do everything getting there is so crucial to this career. If you don't enjoy the process, then find something else to do.
Yeah. Just curious, like what is a like technique or trick or whatever? How do you learn your lines? Because I know like for me, I feel like I would prefer to be more behind the camera. I would like to know how to act, but I'm definitely a behind the scenes girl. And like, you know, I worked on that movie a couple of years ago, and there were a couple of scenes I was supposed to be in as an extra, but I was having more fun working behind the camera that I didn't even get in the scenes I was supposed to be in because I was having more fun behind the camera than in front of it. So I was like, you know, but for me, I'm like, my brain goes so blank sometimes. I'm like, I would just worried that for me, like getting on set, and this actually did happen. I had one line in the movie and it ended up getting cut out for the scene was too long, and I started the scene off. So they ended up like cutting off that whole first part of the scene. And but literally we're setting up. I was one of the extra coordinators, so I was used to working when I was on the set. I was not used to being in front of the camera as much. So we get all set up and everything, and you know, you're getting ready, and of course they're hollering quiet on the set, you know, like getting everybody set. I swear I never heard any of that. All I heard was action. And I swing around and look at the director, and he's like, that means you do your thing. Like you walk. I'm like, I know what it means. But and I literally have one line, but it was like I was so in a different space that I didn't even catch on to what was happening. So I literally like just started walking. I didn't even say my line. So we had to do it again. You know, and thankfully, you know, we were all, it's a small production. We're all friends, you know, so it wasn't a big deal, but it was just like, I would be so terrified of getting on set and forgetting my lines. So what would be a tip kind of you would say for remembering lines? Just curious.
That's that is $1 million question, isn't it? I wish I could say that there is some sort of trick or something to do to memorize it. For me, it's doing the process. So when I get my sides, I break them down. When I can show you some sides or some auditions I did last week, they're covered in notes. So I do my intention for each line. I do character analysis. I do where's the setting, and then I one of the checkoff techniques is to really go through the script and spend about literally an hour on every page and flesh it out as if you were envisioning yourself there on the day. Because when you're doing an audition or when you're acting, it's not like you're there on the day and it's happening. You could be standing right here and there's an audience behind you. Like there's an audience there and the camera and the whole crew. And then the one actor that you're supposed to be speaking to is right here. So all you have is really the connection between you and them.
Right.
And so you need to do all of this work and preparation prior to be able to sit there with that person and go, I'm so sorry, I love you, you know, or something to give that intention. And it takes it getting it on its feet. But often with film, as I'm sure you are aware, you don't have the time to rehearse. With theater, you have a lot more rehearsal time, and with film, you might have one time to do blocking, and then the next take is action.
Mm-hmm.
And
I've heard that from so many people.
Come in with the foundation. Oh, sorry, Morgan.
No, you're okay. I remember, like I said, I'm a big fan about watching interviews and stuff. And I don't know if I want to say it was Andrew Garfield. He does a lot of both theater and film, and he talked about how he's met so many other people who've also done theater and film, and they go and they tell people who are young actors, so like, do theater. Like, let that be your base and your foundation, because that will help you so much with everything. They're like, the most training you could ever have as an actor, the most education you can get as an actor is acting classes and theater.
For sure.
Because with that, it's so much.
I have a young lady who's messaging me that I know her father, and she's messaged me a few times on Instagram, and I responded. She really wants to be an actress, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'd love to help you. But essentially, it's like, how do I do this right now? And it's like, you know what? It took me 2 years of training in theater to know how to then translate that, and then a lot of classes to do film training to then be able to get on film. Because you have a lot there. It's not just you sitting in front of your camera at home talking. It's like an audience is there, and everyone is looking at you like, is your hair kind of up? No, I'm gonna have to fix your hair. Like, they're not looking at your performance, they're looking at the final picture. And that's an enormous amount. You feel very humbled going on set. Enormous amount of pressure. But what I'm saying is, I do an enormous amount of script analysis, and then through that process, I then organically absorb my lines. And if I have a line, and sometimes there's rewrites, and so like if I have a line that's new, I kid you not, and I don't want to say the old line, I want to say the new line, I will sit there with it and say it 100 times over and over and over and over and over again. If it's like a single word that's changed, so it goes from like, you look very pleasant today, to like, you look very pleasant, I guess, or something. Like, I'll say, I guess, I'll do it over and over and over again to make sure that on the day I'm not going to say the wrong line. But sometimes you do, and that's the joy of film, is that you're able to then, if the director is an actor's director, meaning that they're not just thinking about everything else, they're also zoning in on the performers. They'll be like, excuse me. This is why I love working on One Calls the Heart, because all the directors are like that. So Neil, for example, I'll be like, excuse me, Neil, can I do that one more time? And he'll say, definitely. Let's do it again. Try it again. Forget about it. Throw it over your shoulder. We'll do it one more time. Because you want to make sure that the performance is incorporating all the different elements that's happening. Like you have to understand that you're not the main focus in the shot. You're just one very small slice of a very big production, and you want to be able to bring different elements to it. But also, when you bring that foundation, like, this is the hardest part. You throw it away and forget about it, and then you perform. So that's what I do. And I sometimes practice my lines. It really depends on the rewrites. I've had rewrites on the day, 20 minutes before I'm in front of the camera, where a monologue is completely rewritten. And it's like, how do I memorize a monologue in 20 minutes? You do. You know? It's like, it's part of the job. So it's because I've done all of the other work prior to that, I can feel that I have to tell myself, you're capable of doing this, and not spend however much time panicking. Just spend the time focused and go, you can do this. And then you do. Yeah.
What is your experience? And I promise we'll get to When Calls the Heart, but we're both behind the scenes geeks, so this is like, we're having fun. But what is your experience? Like, I know a lot of people like to do improv. I know some like directors don't want you to vary off the script, whatever. And one thing that was really fun, some of the more comedic moments in the movie that I worked on were improv. You know, where the guy that played the character of Shane, this was actually his first film role. and he was just a natural of like at one of the things that he did. He was supposed to be like terrible at playing golf. So when he swung the club, he threw it downfield and somebody off screen like tossed one, made it look like it like went all the way up and landed behind him. So the guys that are with him turn around and look at that. This is not in the script. He reaches down, grabs the golf ball, throws it downfield, and goes, "Oh, there it is." You know, whatever. So I mean, just like stuff like that they would do that was complete improv that made it into the movie and just made it so much better. So what's your experience with that?
I've done that a few times, and sometimes the director will say, "Hey, Charlotte, we're going to do it one more time, and just do whatever you want." But it really depends on the group of people you're working with on the day. If we are on scene, like we often shoot on TV 7 or 8 scenes in a day, or 6 to 8 scenes in a day. So if we're on scene 7 or 8 and we have like an hour left or something, you're not going to be given the opportunity necessarily to improvise. But there are other times when the director will go, let's just try it. And I worked on a series called Guidance, and the gentlemen in Guidance were all, I don't know if you know Second City, but Second City is a big improv a performance, like it now it's a performance center, but they also do classes. Oh, okay. And in Chicago, and they also have another one in Toronto. So they were all Toronto Second City alumni. So those guys were just constantly doing improv. Right. And then I at one point did improv too, and it made it onto the show. So that's a fantastic feeling when you do something improvised and it makes it onto the show. But not every show necessarily gives you that opportunity. It really depends on who you're working with, or like it really depends who you're working with and the tone of the show that you're on. When Calls the Heart, I have flubbed lines before, and I've always been told it's not a big deal. Let's just do it again. But because it's such a big production, you want to make sure you're as verbatim as possible. That's my sense. But there are other times too where I know I've been told moments on When Calls the Heart were improvised. So it just sort of depends on the day as well.
Yeah. Well, speaking of When Calls the Heart, how did you end up getting that? I know you said you didn't really know how to ride a horse.
Being on a horse, it was like riding a bike, but riding a horse. I had got a self-tape for it, and I remember I went into a little, because at the time, now I'm really good at shooting self-tapes at home with my dad or my boyfriend or whomever. But now it's very much, but at the time it was very much, I had to go into a studio to do it. So I had booked a studio with an acting coach, and it was just an hour-long session. And I did the self-tape for Julie, and I sent it off. It was on a Tuesday. I got cast on Thursday, and I was on a horse literally the following Tuesday in Vancouver.
Wow.
Wow. Around. And I've been on this show now for 10 years. It's one of the most, so people will say, sometimes actors will say, you'll never get cast off a self-tape. You had to go into the audition to do it. Not the case.
Especially now, like you hear so many people say like they get booked by a self-tape a whole life. Like, and I know like there's so many, and there's even actors out there that you never thought, like for instance, Chris McNally. He loves doing self-tapes because he has such anxiety with doing in-person auditions. Like he was honestly didn't think he was going to get, he said this in an interview, I think it was with the Hallmark podcasters, and he was like, he did a self-tape, I think for Nathan, it was who he was originally auditioning for. And then that he got a call back, but he had to go in person. And he was really nervous about it, and he was doing it, and like he felt like the reaction he was getting wasn't that great, like he bombed it. And then literally he walks out the room, was I think about to leave, and they're like, hey, I know you came to audition for Nathan, but would you like to come in and audition for another part of Lucas? Yes. And so he does, and like he gets Lucas, but he talks about it so audibly about how self-tapes were like his comfort zone, and doing in person just made his anxiety go through the roof. And like he talked about how, you know, he was getting auditions so much easier with his self tapes than he was in person. And so that's one thing he was shocked about getting Lucas, was because he was in person.
Oh,
And
that's
so I feel like that would be the case for me, because I do have a lot of anxiety when it comes to this kind of, like, that kind of thing. I feel like I would be an absolute nervous wreck, like shaking all over.
It's like a job interview that's being recorded. You know,
Oh, that
like,
sounds so horrible.
You know, people are gonna judge you afterwards. They're gonna say, why did she do that? Like, why did she do this? Like, couldn't she have done that more organically? Like, you know that people are gonna judge you for it afterwards.
So I actually have a little bit of experience with that, but it's not acting. So I tried out we have a gospel choir for the whole state. A lot of states do this, where they have a gospel choir. And for the one in Louisiana, I made it. But I remember whenever I wasn't expecting them to record it, like record me coming in and auditioning. I guess that they could play it back, like, you know, directors and everything record their actors and like go back and kind of, you know, feed through things. I was not expecting it, but I actually did it. I thought my throat was going to close up and that was going to be it, but I didn't. But I could just imagine that feeling that I had during those auditions. And I've auditioned like 5 times doing that. For that choir, and I made every time. But I can just imagine, I can like sense that feeling right now, like of my throat closing up and me not being able to talk, it's not coming out, and me just standing there like a ghost.
That was before COVID. That's how you normally, like, the only reason I did a self-tape for One Calls the Heart was because they were auditioning in Vancouver and they hadn't found Julie yet, so they branched it out to Ontario. And I normally, prior to COVID, everything was in person, which is why I lived in Toronto primarily for 10 years, was because I was constantly auditioning in person. And it's really tricky. Like, I'll explain it to people. It's going into a job interview where you get in and you have your resume and you're like, I'm here, I'm ready to go. And you look around the room and everyone in the room looks exactly like you, but they're just slightly more attractive. And you're like, oh no. And then you sit down, you're like, everything's fine. I'm just gonna look at this and everything's, and then like you're waiting there sometimes for like 45 minutes or something. And then like whatever happens, your brain is just spiraling. And then they go, Charlotte Hegele, and you're like, it's me, it's happening. And you rush in there, you do something for 2 minutes, you black out, you walk away, you call your mom, and you're like, I don't even know what happened. Like, it was such a surreal experience. And it was just so, and that was like every audition for me. It never got easier. And I did it for 10 years. So if people have anxiety going into auditions, I have so much love and empathy for them. I totally get it. But with COVID, everything is switched now to online or self-tapes. So I've been doing quite a few self-tapes with either my dad or my boyfriend, who they both are very good readers, and they try very, very hard. So I really appreciate them. Or it'll be like this over Zoom. So it just, and it's one of those things where it's still, the pressure's still on, but it's slightly different. Like, you don't have to see.
You're not feeling the same like physical pressure in the room.
And you know what? There will be sometimes when you're like trying to prepare and like you're like this and you're looking around the room at everyone, and then someone will come up and be like, Charlotte, and you'll be like, yes, and they'll be like, how was LA? And you'll be like, it was great. I had a great time in LA. I made so many friends. And like, you're like, but it's like, no, I had a terrible time in LA. Nobody liked me. I was all alone. I got to, you know, it's just like, no, just don't talk to me about that. But then you're pretending, you're trying to like create this, like you're acting, essentially, this is my thing. You're acting the moment you walk into the room for the audition. You're trying to present the best version of yourself. And I've been told by casting directors, so this is good advice for youngsters who want to, or oldsters who want to get into acting. You will be cast before you start reading the role. First thing they look for is, what's my first take on this person? Second thing they'll look for is, does this person look like the character? Third thing they will look for is, can this person act? So when I walk into a room, you're not just like, hi, hi, okay, I'm Charlotte, I'm ready to go. Would you like me to perform? And then you like go into it and you're performing amazingly and like, okay, bye, and you leave. You'll never get the part. You have to go into the room every single time going, hey, how's it going? Oh, I remember your son was playing you had to leave early last time because your son was playing soccer. How was that? He's the goalie now. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Wait, how old is he now? And like just like creating this conversation and being this personable person, even though your heart is racing like a million beats a minute. That's so important. So you really have to start acting as soon as you walk into the waiting room.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is hard.
That is awesome.
Because sometimes it can be like a couple hour long experience, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. But that makes so much sense too. Like they make so much, especially like as the like you, whenever you say they are judging your appearance, because you do need to look at the character, especially if you're being cast as like, for instance, a sister. So they're looking for you to look similar to, for instance, Erin, or there has to be like you have to pass as sister. So you I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, I can't believe they're gonna be judging me on my looks. Like they're not necessarily picking you apart, but they need you to look like the character they're envisioning in their mind, who they created her to look like, how they created her to be. And
it is a visual medium. And I am so grateful that in recent years, things have been shifting with film to be more inclusive of not just size, but also ethnicity, age, like where we're seeing more interesting stories of different people being cast as leads, whereas before they may have been cast as secondary characters. So that's fabulous. However, it's not the norm yet. We still have to keep working towards that. But you're very right. There is definitely a visual element to it where you feel like that's not fair. That's like that's not okay, but it's like that's the reality, and people will never say, oh, you didn't get cast because of your appearance. They will never admit to that. But I will say this, I used to be a reader for a casting director. I did that for about like 3 or 4 months at the beginning of my career. Once the actor leaves the room and the door shuts, things are said about appearance every time. And that was actually like a stressful job for me because then I became hyper aware of that moving forward in my career.
Absolutely. I can imagine that being, I can imagine becoming very hyper focused on that kind of stuff, like hyper aware of everything. And I mean, body dysmorphia is real.
During my auditions, I feel like I don't even want to remember what's happening. This is so stressful.
Yeah. That's the thing. I don't remember the name of it, but a particular Hallmark movie that is coming out that the girl that is the leading character is like a designer for plus size clothing or whatever. And I'm sorry, but like to me, she is a normal body size. She does not even look what I would call plus size. And I'm like, but thank you for actually casting someone that is a normal body size. Like no judgment whatsoever to skinnier people. More power to them. I wish I was. I'm like, if you can maintain that, great. But your average female is not that size. So to see somebody that is just an average size getting a leading role and playing a person, I think unconsciously we have so much we're taught we have to look this way or whatever, like all these models and stuff that they are photoshopped, for crying out loud. There's no way they can actually look that way.
So much pressure. I feel like I'm always under pressure throughout my entire 20s and less now in my 30s, but still you just feel like, and it's coming from all different areas. It's coming from yourself, but it's also from the media that you absorb, which you're right is Photoshop or filtered. Even Instagram, like people posting their own photos, they're going to make sure that they look fabulous. So
even though they just took like 100 of the same photo, but like
exactly. As someone who takes quite a few photos, I will attest that it's never, and sometimes it is the first photo that gets posted, but nine times out of 10, it's not. You have to take multiple photos to find something you're like, oh, this is the most flattering one. This one's getting posted. It's very not controlled, but it's very sculpted by the individual. And I would love, as you're very right in saying, that there's a sort of, I wouldn't even say it's maybe average is a good word for it, but I also think that it's very common. The majority of people that don't look picture perfect 24/7. There needs to be more of that representation in our media.
Yeah, I think it was, and another thing for that, it would be like, I remember whenever the first Frozen movie came out, or it was the first one, where Anna like gets woken up in bed and like her hair is all crazy and she's got drool coming out of her mouth, even though she's animated.
The most relatable Disney princess ever.
Exactly.
I love Anna.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, she was animated, but like everyone could relate to that immediately. Like, because you see all these other animations where they're like flinging themselves on the bed and they're like crying or whatever. And it's like, or like, for instance, like I see so many people like edit the photos of like Ariel coming out of the sea and like the water's behind her and her hair looks so perfect. But in reality, her hair would be sticking all over her face if that was really happening. Like, even though we know that's animation, I feel like the same can be attested to acting too. Because like, you know, when you're like, for instance, on a horse galloping through the woods and it's like dirt and like flies and bugs everywhere and everything, you're not going to have like, and you're probably sweating because you've got a corset on and all kinds of other layer clothes on. You're, you know, I mean, when you're probably getting a lot of touch-ups for your makeup and your hair, and it's like, you know, that kind of stuff doesn't actually happen in real life. You know, when you're on a date with a man, you're right through the woods on a horse, your hair's going to be in your face, you're going to be sweating, you're not going to look, you know, perfect the whole time. But you know,
there's that
right
media to make it feel more realistic.
It's funny because I was watching the season 2 scenes with Julie earlier, and oh yes, this is Morgan's baby.
Sorry, she came in. She crawled under. I have a small inch of my doors like cracked a bunch a little bit, and she squeezed herself through. So this is Rosie.
Rosie,
hi.
Rosie, what a good name. Hello, Miss Rosie. How old is Rosie?
She is 8 weeks. 8 weeks. She's her mom was Pomeranian and Shih Tzu, and her dad, Chihuahua and Shih Tzu, and her dad was Chihuahua and Pomeranian. So she's a little bit of a mixture, but
so cute. Oh my god, I love dogs. They're my favorite.
I know she's helped us so much. I know Kerri told you that I lost my boxer a few months ago, so she's been very much a very big help in that. So she likes to pop in and join on our podcast lately.
Rosie's always welcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good. But
sorry to interrupt, Kerri.
No, you're good. I was watching some of the season 2 scenes, and when Jack and Elizabeth pull up at the Thatcher house from the train station, and they've been riding in the car, like open vehicle on the way from the train station, and I'm looking at Elizabeth and her hair is still like just so perfect, and I'm thinking, okay, personally, I cannot roll down my window for 2 seconds without my hair being an absolute disaster.
From Bridget Jones's Diary. Have you seen that movie? Where
I have not. I'm familiar-ish with it, but I haven't.
With Hugh Grant, and then she's all like, she's like, I feel like Grace Kelly, and she's got like her like, and then all of a sudden her hair, like when she shows up at the hotel, is up to here. It's all blown out. She's like, a room for 2. You know, she's just like, she's not looking as pristine as she was when going into the car. And you know, and it's that sort of storyline, that sort of visual is for it's not used to make it look realistic. It's used to make it look like a joke, right? But it is realistic. That's what happens.
That's why it's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so relatable, but but it's also so funny at the same time when like for instance that same scene, like they didn't drive actually down the road. They probably literally were parked right on the other side of the camera and like literally just kind of stroll through. So that technically her hair wouldn't have had time to get messed up because it wasn't driving very long.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So what was kind of delving into that a little bit, what was your favorite part about playing Julie, or your favorite part about Julie's character, or just working on the show? Or
I wrote some notes. I'm gonna not try and read from them, but I'm going to try and okay, I love how playful and curious Julie is, and she has an eye out always for something that is beautiful or enticing, be it a person or a thing. So that's something I'm searching for. And I admire how she is such a hopeless romantic, more so than I am. Are you a hopeless romantic as well? There we go.
Absolutely.
And I
don't think you can watch Hallmark movies without being a hopeless romantic of some sort. I feel like Hallmark,
we all have a little bit of this romanticness in ourselves, but no, she's way more than I am. And I do. I mean, I can say this story. I met my boyfriend Aaron a year ago almost. We're gonna celebrate our year-long anniversary. And I kid you not, when I met him, I was hanging out with my friend Jill, and we kind of talked for a little bit, and then he went away. And I looked over at Jill and I said, "That person's going to be an important person in my life." Really? And I was like, "Yep." And that was even before he had like asked me out, or we had like a long conversation or anything. And then we've now been dating for a year.
Oh, congratulations!
Romantic too, but it just depends on the right person.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so I think that Julie is got that innocence to her, but also that zest for life that everyone's like, yeah, I want to see what this girl's going to be, what story she'll stumble upon next, or what person she'll stumble upon next, because it always seems to be slightly larger than life. She never quite, she loves I will say that we're similar. She loves the drama. I love the drama. So.
I feel like, because I can't really remember, because it's been so long since I've watched the earlier seasons, but I don't think we ever really got much of a scene where we had Julie and Rosemary in the same room.
Never. No. So this is something fun. I remember when Pascal was on set. So my Julie was on the first, she was on episode 9 and 10, and then episode 11 she leaves, and Rosemary appears in episode 11. So literally she's off the buggy when Julie gets on the buggy, and the one time they interact, Julie's like like stares her up and down and goes, "Who is this gal?" I think they would, in another life, I think they would be good friends.
Oh yeah.
I think if Julie came to Hope Valley now, I think her and Rosemary would 100% be buddies. And poor Elizabeth, because she would have her hands full.
She would probably tell them both, "Okay, you make Jack look like a piece of cake right now." Because having to handle you two is a whole lot more of an easier. No, I will take handling my kid over trying to handle you two together any day.
Okay, and Lee, like, can you imagine Lee in that situation? I think he would be cracking up, actually, like watching Elizabeth try to deal with them, and then he gets stuck with them somehow or another, and he is going to be trying to find somewhere to run.
Like, "Elizabeth, please get your sister out of here." I'm so glad you're getting to see your sister, but get her out of here.
No, I think it's a good observation, and it's fun to imagine that those sort of interactions, right? And that's where comes from, like thinking about sort of interactions of characters that we don't often see on screen together.
Yeah.
Oh, that's one thing that we love doing that. We love trying to think of like scenarios where we know some, like for instance, whenever we had Andrew Walker on, we were like asking him, like, "What do you think Billy's doing right now? Like, what do you think that he could come back somehow? Like, maybe he's all of a sudden like turned his life over to like life around, and he's actually being serious, and like he comes to town, and of course Elizabeth's all like weary of him, and he's like trying to like be like, I'm no longer that person anymore. And then I think it was Kerri popped out, like, or maybe that's Billy's twin, and he's trying to like come in and try and be part of Hope Valley, and they're thinking he's Billy. Like, we like messing with all the scenarios that we could possibly try and conjure up in our minds about what's going on. But yeah, we always talked about how Julie and Rosemary would have been like so tight together if they would have gotten some good scenes together.
We have very similar playfulnesses, like almost childlike energies, where they just want to kind of, I don't know, I feel like they both bring people up around them, and that might not be true, but that's my take.
I feel like
you're right. They have like it's like you said, the zest for life
for everybody. They want to make the world a great place for everybody. Like, they want to make everybody happy. They want to just spread sunshine all over the place, and that is both of their personalities. During the whole triangle thing that was going on, how many times did we say that we would love to see Julie and Lucas get together?
We did.
Yes. Because we were like, he would have his hands full. Like, this would be a challenge for him, you know, because like we
talked about, they in season 6, we really talked about it. Yeah. And then as we got to know Lucas more, and then of course the other character Fiona, we also went him possibly with Fiona. But we talked about how, and I think I found a fanfic on online where Julie and Lucas were put together, and I have to say it was pretty good.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Well, I feel like Lucas and like him and Elizabeth are fine together, but I feel like especially going back and rewatching the early seasons, Jack and Elizabeth, part of what was so great about their relationship was they challenged each other. They made each other grow. They pulled out elements of each other that were kind of under the surface. And I feel like Lucas and Elizabeth are more just comfortable. They don't really challenge each other that much. I like to see that challenge. I like to see that you pull something better out of somebody than they were before they met you type element. I just like to see that personally. So like, to me, I feel like Lucas, like, him and Elizabeth are fine together, but I feel like he deserves somebody that actually like challenges him and keeps him on his toes and stuff, instead of, I don't know, I just picture that for him. I just feel like that's something that would do him good, and just pull out a fun side to him, because he's kind of a reserved character. So I feel like having somebody that keeps him on his toes and is more of a lively personality would pull out a fun side to him that we don't see. But
did you oh, sorry, you go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm trying to remember what I was going to ask, so go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, so you did come back for little Jax's christening.
Mm-hmm.
So was that the last time we saw Julie?
Yes. Yeah.
It was. I can't recall. Did Julie ever get to meet any of the suitors?
No.
Because I don't remember.
Not on screen, but I have ideas as to how she would interact with them. Nothing that I can say that's official. But yeah.
No, just kind of in your mind, like, not saying this will ever happen. This is just your creative brain.
Fantasy land.
Doing what we've been doing and saying, okay, here's what we think this character would be doing. So this is what this is. We're not committing you to anything. Where do you think Julie would be at this point? Do you think her and Tom would ever get back together, or do you think she has outgrown him? And how do you think she would feel about like Lucas versus Nathan? Just kind of your thoughts, like as Julie, what would you think?
Thank God I wrote notes. Okay. I'm gonna say that I think Julie would think both Lucas and Nathan are extremely handsome. She would be thrilled for Elizabeth. I think that she's always been a little bit enticed by a man in uniform or red serge, if you will. So she'd probably be very interested in chatting with Nathan. But that being said, I think she would like Lucas as well because she knows that he makes Elizabeth happy. And so it would just be very interesting to see them all on screen together. Tom, I think I wouldn't necessarily use the word outgrown. I think that they've both evolved into older, because it's been almost 8 years, I think, since they were first on screen. So they've evolved into different versions of themselves. Natural and fantastic. And so is there a possibility that Tom and Julie reconnect in their 30s and fall in love again? Quite possibly, as this new version of themselves. I think so. That doesn't necessarily mean that they will, but who knows? But I think that I'd have to also know what Tom's been up to be able to play that fully. Julie, I can imagine, and I always say this, is that I just want every character I play to be happy. Like, I have so much love and empathy for every character I play. So I'm hoping that Julie is painting and drawing and like flourishing in the art world in Europe, because that's where we're in 1920 now. In the story. So she would be in Europe and quite possibly experiencing Art Deco and Expressionism and Surrealism, and quite possibly dating a famous painter. I think she would be thrilled to have Picasso or Dali. I think that those would all be wonderful options for her. Is she going to end up being a famous artist? I don't know. But I think at the end of season 5, when she goes off to study art, that's what will make her happy. And what I'm looking forward to. And that's what I've said before too, is that she used to put a lot of emphasis on external validation. What I would like for her is, while she evolves, to find internal validation through self-expression and be it painting or teaching or her interpersonal relationships. But then simultaneously, that's what I loved about playing Julie at the beginning of When Calls the Heart, is that she was just so spunky and adventurous, and to a fault. You know, like, people will say, well, how are you different from Julie? It's like, well, I've never been kidnapped. You know, probably more than once. She's just very trusting, you know. And I just want her to have evolved into a version of herself where she's more secure in who she is and the choices that she's making.
I can picture, like, as you're talking, I'm picturing her maybe having been like in Paris or something, and of course we are hitting 1920, so I could almost see Julie coming back with some kind of like the shorter haircut and the clothing style and
the flapper style.
Yeah, kind of like that. And you remember how much Sir Fiona calls when she came in and her skirts were shorter, and I can just see Julie coming in with like a next level of that,
showing her shoulders, showing her knees, like all of that. Like, I can see,
but like coming from abroad and bringing that with her, and you know, kind of, and just, you know, everybody's just kind of like, okay, you know, like, but that is the state that this time period is turning into. So for her to kind of be somebody that, oh yeah, I want to do that, you know, and to kind of be one of the front runners, I guess, or however that would be, of that. I could picture Julie doing that.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, no, I could picture that too.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite eras, or at least fashion wise, and like that whole style. Like, I've always loved like that style of the 20s. I'm really excited about how they're going to incorporate incorporate that into When Calls the Heart, because we've done, for the longest time, we've had the long skirts and the, you know, like the long sleeves and being proper with how you dress, especially for the women. But I can, as you were talking, I kind of was picturing like Elizabeth and Julie sitting at her kitchen table, and Elizabeth just being like, you've grown up, you know, like, wow, like you're not this little kid anymore that I was having to try and help my parents parent you and try and keep you out of trouble and keep you from getting kidnapped and everything. And now you're grown up and you're, you know, you've got all this
woman of the world now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can see them having that kind of conversation, because for the longest time it was, you always saw Elizabeth kind of be like, Julie, like, can you, like, you know, and just like, you need to calm down, like, stop chasing boys, like you're so intelligent, you're so smart, you're so beautiful, you don't need to go chasing after a gun runner, or, you know, things like having that big sister talk. And then finally she's able to just sit and have a conversation with Julie and not feel like she's parenting her, but actually being able to be her sister. Because
and maybe even Julie giving Elizabeth some good advice on something that Elizabeth's like, well, you really have grown up, haven't you? You know, where Julie is now actually being able to be a guiding force in Elizabeth's life and not just the other way around.
Love that. That's amazing. Yeah, those are amazing. You should be writers on the show. If it was fun, I would hire both of you.
Well,
thank you.
Appreciate that. Yeah, what was it? Andrew, what was it he said, that we needed to be creative producers? Is that what he called it?
I think so.
I think so. Yeah. Pretty much both of us.
We always say on our podcast, like, Hallmark, we're right here. All you gotta do is call us. We got all of the ideas. Just gotta call us.
Yeah. I have like legit so many ideas. I don't know what to do with them. But didn't we actually, which storyline was it? Was it the one for Andrew that we talked about having Charlotte in a role?
I want to say
one.
I want to say it was.
We do our own casting in our heads too when we start talking about stuff. So I know there was one particular one that we talked about of having you in it, and I don't remember which one it was. Oh geez, we throw so many ideas out. I don't remember what.
Yeah, we have all of these ideas for movies for Hallmark, and I do want to say it was a movie with Andrea, and you were going to play Andrea's sister. That was based a little bit loosely off of Julie's character, but I think a little bit more mature. But well, I don't really want to say mature. I guess a little bit more grounded.
Okay, grounded.
Yeah. So, but I can't really remember, because we've done so many of these. But we always think about, like, we pull a lot from When Calls the Heart, people, because that's one of the main shows that we watch together, and a lot of what we like to kind of base off of our other stuff. But yeah, we always go and we think of scenarios that we would love to see Elizabeth and Julie from and everything. And I'm trying to remember, but I can't.
Yeah, I don't remember either. But your name was brought up in one of those conversations. I just don't remember which one it was. But yeah, definitely that is definitely something that I at least want to get into. I don't know about Morgan, but I know that's something that's always been my dream. I had forgotten until we were talking about Julie and Tom. Tom was at Jack and Elizabeth's wedding as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. So
yeah,
there was a moment where they sort of, it was like running into your ex,
right?
And you're like, hi, and then he's like, hi, and you're like, hi, and then you're like, bye.
Yeah,
you're good.
Yeah,
There's
like that edge of chemistry. That edge of chemistry.
Still there. And wouldn't it be interesting if they do end up together? But that's, that's just one of those things. And like, I would love to say that they're texting but there's no texting back in the day. What do they do? Writing each other letters? I don't know. Julie's in.
They do have the telephone. They do have a telephone now.
She's calling overseas. I can't imagine. I can't imagine the long distance charges in 19.
Yeah, right?
Mom might still be chatting with Tom. I know that she felt very connected to him, which was,
you kind of also think about how it was whenever Jack died, because that's his brother, and then of course that's her sister's husband, and like I can't imagine how Julie was during that whole situation.
I think it was just a horrific Like I just couldn't, like I ached when I saw that episode, because I know I was on the season when it happened, but I didn't see the footage until I watched it air as everyone else did, and it just broke my heart. Her sister, it would have broken her by Julie's heart.
Yeah, because I imagine you play a character for so long.
Well,
Yeah.
I played a character this long before. Julie, I've been Julie for 10 years. So interesting, and in some ways it's interesting because you want to continue the same essence, but you also need to have evolution, or else, you know.
Right. So I just remembered this, and it was just this past season. So Elizabeth wrote a book.
Yeah.
And so there was this big thing in one of the episodes about one of the characters, Molly, mistaking her character. She like how she was describing her character and everything. Molly just automatically thought that it was her that Elizabeth was insinuating, and it was under a different name, obviously. And Molly was upset because she's like, I can't believe that Elizabeth saw me like this, or and it turned out to be her sister, Julie. And did she say Julie's reaction, or that Julie or that she was waiting to hear Julie's reaction to whenever she got to read the book?
I don't know if Julie's read the book yet. I think Julie needs to. I think that's a great question. I don't actually know if Julie's read the book. I feel like she would, because she's a lover of novels.
Yeah.
But
I have a feeling.
I don't know if I want to answer it as the actor. I would honestly have to ask one of the writers or the showrunner to be like, do you think Julie's read this, and what would her response?
What was her reaction? Right.
Yeah.
It's like, it wasn't, she wasn't too horrible about Julie, but there were some situations where you're like, Elizabeth, that's your sister. Can you?
I think you saying that would actually be kind of a funny element, is if Julie has been overseas doing her things and she comes to Hope Valley and Elizabeth asks her, like, have you read it yet? Oh yeah, I loved it. And then she has not read it. So she's like sneaking and reading it behind Elizabeth's back, and then she sees that and freaks out and is like getting into Elizabeth's face. Like giving away the fact she has not actually read it at this point. She's just now discovering it, although she has told Elizabeth, oh, that's great, I loved it. And they're like, okay, what did I miss? That would actually be really fun.
I feel like Julie would be like, oh my god, I loved it was fabulous, and then like read it off in the corner in the back.
Yeah, I can see her like of course I haven't read it, Elizabeth, I was in Paris. I didn't get it yet. Like, it wasn't like you didn't ship it to me in Paris. You sent it to Hamilton, to our home with our father. You didn't send it to me in Paris. So of course I hadn't read it yet.
Yeah.
That was hilarious. That's an interesting idea. I'm gonna have to think about that for a bit, and have to ask some of the people on the show what their thoughts are about it, because I can't speak.
This is what we do. We sit here and we come up with stuff like this. So.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I love that. Fantastic. And that was a great storyline last season, eh?
What did you say? I'm sorry.
The book. Like the.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So just curious, like, if you weren't, it could be Julie, but if you could pick any character from When Calls the Heart to be, who would it be? And it can be Julie, but I'm just saying, like.
100% Julie. I didn't know. I thought you wanted me to say like any other character. If I had to pick a character, I'd be Julie. And that's sort of just, I've sort of fallen in love. Like, there are moments when I get scripts. I've in the past gotten scripts for Julie, and I've looked at it kind of being like, well, I don't know if Julie would do this. But then, I kind of center myself and go, how can I do this in a Julie way where it may come off as kind of rude or oblivious, but it's coming from a place of like innocence or fullness always. And I love that part about her. And I think if I had to choose another character to be, and I don't know specifically which one, but I'd say I'd want to play a Mountie or like a hero in that time period, because Julie's always the damsel in distress. And I would love to be the character that swoops in at the end and saves everybody. And has that element, but but at the time period, at least in the first season, that's not necessarily what a female would necessarily be. Like I think that it was a very, very structured sort of storyline or trope where it was like lady gets kidnapped or ladies get kidnapped.
Mountie saves the day.
I want to save the day. I want to like on a vibe.
I can see it. I can see it like a almost like a female bounty hunter or something that ends up like that is like, you know, just kind of this hardened, okay, I'm just in it for the money, but then ends up having a soft-hearted moment where they end up doing it just for the people, you know, and then kind of, oh no, that wasn't the reason, you know, like brushing it off. But so I could see that.
Yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun to see. I know that it wouldn't in this universe happen, but I think it would be nice to see a female.
I feel like in some ways Elizabeth just kind of came in and saved the day every once in a while, but like totally does. But it's not like she's an official Mountie. I want to be a right. You want the uniform. You want to be the one that's in the uniform. A woman in uniform.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I actually got to meet Jeanette Oak a few weeks ago at an event in Indiana. Yeah, Brian Bird was there, and in fact, the shirt is from the Round Barn Theater. They did the Wind Calls the Heart musical. And they did like a Hardee's VIP weekend, and they did it last year, and then they got to do it again this year, and Jeanette got to come this year. But she was an absolute doll. I loved her. She was so precious to meet. And but you know, we talk a lot about we talked a lot at the beginning of this about, you know, just kind of the headspace that we get in, and you know, even not exactly in these words, but being comfortable as ourselves and in ourselves and being confident in that and whatever. And a lot of things that you post on Instagram and stuff, I know I told you this before we hit record, but you talk a lot about mental health and stuff. And as somebody that deals with anxiety, social anxiety, and feeling like an outcast and I'm not good enough and blah, 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 so much of what you post, I'm like, ouch. You know, that is so accurate. And I feel like it's really sad because I feel like people that struggle with anxiety and stuff, I feel like they're almost treated as if they're wrong for that. I've literally been told you're just looking for attention.
I am so
and
sorry.
I'm like, I'm thinking, okay, you know, if I wanted attention, I would not, why would I want to go through this torture just for the sake of attention? Okay. You know, but
okay, yeah. First of all, F that person. To be quite blunt, I think that if someone's thinking, and that's the thing, I think there's that lack of understanding. Every person experiences this life through their own very specific lens and wiring.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you accept or release this idea that if I'm experiencing this life with my perception, you must be doing it the same way. As soon as you release that, you suddenly become so much more open to the opportunity to understand and empathize with other people. Mm-hmm. And I feel very badly for that person for thinking, oh, well, I experience anxiety and I know what it feels like and it's not that bad. And you just want attention. And it's like, you know what? That very well, if you do it, then you might be wanting attention, but that's not necessarily how 99% of people who experience anxiety function. Mm-hmm. A lot more complex. And I think that it's quite humbling to know that every person will walk through this life, through their lifetime, with a very unique sense of self and past experiences that will influence their behavior, emotions, and thoughts. And I'm very sorry that was said to you. Similar things have been said to me, and so I can fully empathize and send you so much love. It's not fair. Especially if it's someone who you respect or someone important in your life, like if it's a close interpersonal relationship, that can be really hard. And I did for about a year, not 6 to 9 months, I did online therapy during COVID, but it was group therapy. So I got to work with other individuals in the same situation with one therapist, and we all kind of talked and held each other accountable. But that was my growing experience, to sit down and go, you know what? I was diagnosed with anxiety, with depression, with this, but just because I was diagnosed with those things, I don't experience those things the same way as all the other people in my group. And it was very humbling. To know that ultimately we all just want to be seen, understood, and feel worthy of love. And I think you are very worthy of love. We've only been chatting. I know we've been friends on Instagram for a minute. We've only been chatting for about an hour. So I think you are both fully worthy of love.
Well, you as well. Messaging with you has like touched me in an extreme way. You have no idea. But like for me, I've been through different stuff in my life that, you know, people are like, you know, just discover what's a trigger for you and eliminate that. I'm like, there's no determining. Sometimes you can know, okay, this person is a trigger for me. My grandfather, honestly, like I love him because he is my grandfather. I have not spoken to him in years because we had gotten away from him for years, and then I reached more of an adulthood state, and I was like, okay, I want to try this again. I got around him, and he put me in either 2 or 3 literal physical nervous breakdowns. Like, this is just the toxic relationship that it is anytime I've ever tried to reach out to him. And I have never regained my strength and my nerves from that. And that's been like 7 years ago. But like the other day, this is not the other day. This has been a little bit before my mom died. So it's been several months. That literally I went into a 2-day panic attack, like anxiety attack, almost hyperventilating, because I got a text from my brother that said, hey, I'm like, my brother never texts me, something must be wrong. Like nothing, like literally that sent me into a 2-day tailspin. And I'm like, there's no, when a simple 3-letter text can take you into a 2-day tailspin, there's no determining, okay, this is a trigger, but no, for me, it's just something that I'm like, I'm a 9 on the Enneagram. So the just feeling seen, just feeling understood, and you don't have to agree with me, but just don't. One of my best friends, one of the reasons that to me he's my best friend, we're completely different people. We don't always agree. We're actually like extreme opposites in certain ways, but never once had he made me feel like I wasn't entitled to feel the way that I feel, even though he doesn't agree with me. He doesn't make me feel like I'm not entitled to my feelings just because I'm different. And that is a huge thing.
Shame, there's no foundation in shame.
There's no
in judgment. And I feel like a lot of our interpersonal relationships have those sort of underlining subconscious tones that trigger you. But once you are seen for who you really are, it's a very scary but beautiful experience. So I'm very happy to support honey.
Yeah. Like there are times he gets like laughing, frustrated with me because I will be overreacting to something. And I know I'm overreacting, but that's how I feel in that moment. So it's like, okay, he doesn't just come at me and go, okay, you need to get over yourself. He's like, okay, well, I can see where that would make you feel, I can see where that would suck, whatever. And literally that's like the one person besides Morgan. See, he's like the one person that has ever done that has ever just said, you're not wrong. It drives me nuts. Am I the only person that it drives nuts that people act like, oh, there's people, going through this, and this, so you shouldn't, your problems are nothing compared to theirs. And I'm like, but that doesn't mean these are not problems. Just because my problems might not be as big or the same as theirs doesn't mean they're not a problem to me. And I'm like, I'm tired of people acting like we're supposed to just act like everything's fine. Me and Morgan are both, Christian girls. And I'm like, where do people get this impression that Christians are just supposed to be happy, happy, joy, joy all the time? I'm like, I don't know what translation of the Bible you're reading, but mine says, in the world you shall have tribulation. Like it literally says you're going to go through hard times. So I'm like, where did we get this impression that, yes, the joy of the Lord is your strength, but that doesn't mean the process isn't going to suck to get where you're going, So
saying this, but I think there are people out there that sense energies from other people, and for whatever reason within themselves, this is what I love saying, that's a you issue. That is not a me issue, that is a you issue. For whatever reason within themselves, they want to put a cap on your energy. So your energy very well might be, I'm really mad at this thing right now, and they might go, cap. It's not that big.
Right.
Might say, oh my gosh, have you seen my new socks? And then they would go, okay, it's a little hot out for those socks, but again, a cap. They try to push, and it has nothing to do with what you're really talking about. It has to do with putting a cap on your energy and who you really are in your self-expression. And I think that those people, through therapy, I have learned that they are described as like energy vampires, or, if you will, that they kind of suck your energy out, and they don't really, they don't give you the wonderful soil that you need to grow into another version and to evolve into the next day. They just suck the energy out, or they make you feel stifled, or they make you feel like, oh, okay, right, yeah, I guess it is a little weird to be wearing these socks, I should take them off. And like, I'm not talking just about socks, I'm talking about everything. What I mean?
I had a very close friend. We grew up together. We met when we were like 13. And it wasn't until about maybe right before COVID that we kind of fizzled out, and I kind of distanced myself from them. And it was several times in the years that I realized, like, this is not how a best friend should treat another best friend. But at the time, they were my only friend, and it was like, I didn't want to, despite not liking how I was being treated, there were also good times, obviously. Like, it wasn't always bad. So I held on to the friendship because of the good times, and I tried to ignore the bad times and but I remember one time, and it stuck with me for, even to this day, where we were all in my room, I think, we were talking, and we were obviously like giggling and all laughing and like gossiping and, just, being silly teenage girls talking about boys or whatever. And actually, I probably was at her house. I'm not sure. We were at one of our houses, and I remember she was like, "Morgan, your volume's up here. You need to bring it down here. You're getting a little too loud." And I just like shrunk. It made me feel like I was this tiny little midget in the corner that no longer had a voice. And even to this day, I will, depending on who I'm around and where I'm around, there's a lot of times where I kind of just don't talk, or I try and watch my volume. But it's hard because then, especially when I get excited about something, you'll instantly hear my volume go skyrocket whenever I'm talking about something I really love and I really care about. And I talk really fast because I'm Southern, and I just like, but and it was probably around that time that I kind of started developing my social anxiety and my anxiety just to being around people at all. even people that I'm kind of in a way used to being around. So yeah, I remember, and it was about 3 years ago that I met my new best friend. And it was honestly hilarious how we met. We actually met. We were both friends to the one girl that told me that, and she helped us introduce each other and like become friends. And she kind of got jealous of our friendship because we fed off each other like very quickly. Like we were in the back, like day that we met, we were in the back seat dancing, loudly laughing at each other over the radio. Like we were equal in so many ways. Like we were both equally loud. We both equally got louder when we got excited and all of that kind of stuff. And it was like at that moment, I really realized that wasn't my best friend. You're my best friend. This is how I should have been treated. That was not how I should have been treated.
Exactly. And you know what? That's something that I think is very poignant and very important, is that you don't have to move forward in your life looking back at the first relationship and going, that was a negative experience. You can look at it and go, that was a learning experience. And I set a standard and a boundary for me that I now know you have to be well above that to be worthy of my love.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't have very many best friends because of that. Like Kerri, I have Kerri and like maybe 2 other people. And then that's about it when it comes to like my close knit circle that I allow, that people who I let really close in. But yeah, and that honestly helped me too, because now I kind of look for girls that are like me, who come off and get labeled as weird or loud or that kind of like, who get easily labeled.
Normal is boring. Okay.
Yes.
Normal is boring.
Normal is boring. I love.
What is normal though? What is normal? Like even society's normal. Like even society kind of sometimes goes off on its own thing where it's like, oh, that's no longer normal anymore. This is the new normal now. This is like I
think normal can be characterized as the majority of the people swaying towards a certain stereotype or what's the word I'm thinking of? It's like swaying towards a certain level area where most people, when you're really your authentic self, you're going to shine, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to kind of settle down into this comfortable area. You're going to be at times uncomfortable, then also you're going to be really a wonderful not version of yourself, but you're going to express yourself in a way that everyone would gravitate towards and go, oh my gosh, I want to know who that person is. Because you're unique. There's only one you. And that's the other thing. My aunt, again, who told me about the toolbox, she said, Charlotte, and I said, I don't know if I could be an actor. She said, Charlotte, if not you, then who? If not now, then when? I said, damn, Charlotte, because her name is Charlotte. Damn, Charlotte, okay. I'll be an actor then. You don't have to say that twice.
But that is so true, because even, yeah, I mean, that's even like with, for instance, Kerri with her writing, her desire to be behind the camera and things like that, like taking the chances of being on the miniseries and stuff like that. It's like, you know, you have to take on those chances and be like, you grasp it right on, you know, everything will fall in its place, you know.
You know, after filming the movie, I feel like I have come a long way in like self-growth and self-development and just kind of figuring things out in my own head instead of letting others impact as much over the last few years. But directly after filming, I had at least 2 people, one person during filming, but at least 2 people after filming that came at me and accused me of a bunch of stuff, like hogging the spotlight. Okay. They said I hogged the spotlight, and they also said I didn't work. So I don't know exactly how you can combine those 2, but somehow or another they did. That I was trying to push them out, and you know, blah 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 blah, and that broke my heart, because like one of these people I had been like best friends with for a year. We had gone on trips together. She had come to my house. I had gone to her house. You know, like, you know, we lived states apart, so we would go do stuff together and whatever. And I was getting attention from this is an independent project, but we had very few like Hollywood professionals actually on set because it was such a low budget film. The majority of us that were working had never set foot on a set before in our lives, and we still turned out a pretty darn good project, I will say. But anyway, I was getting attention from like our assistant director who had worked on some high budget movies, and our leading man who, you know, he's done some projects and he writes and directs some of his own movies and whatever. So I was getting attention from these people, and I'm getting other people telling me, you were hogging the spotlight, you were doing this, you were doing that, you know, whatever. And I'm the person that I never assume I'm wanted somewhere, or I always try to build someone else up bigger than myself or whatever. And I just had to come to this point of, you know what, if they feel like, because I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I had never set foot on a set before, so I didn't even know what I was doing. And I just had to come to this point of, you know what, I'm gonna have to take this as a twisted compliment, because if they feel like I could push them out and I don't even know what the heck I'm doing, and they feel like I could steal the spotlight and stuff, if I ever figure out what I'm doing, everybody better look out. Because, you know, I was like, you know, I have got to start looking at that way.
I was going to say, that sounds like a very much of a them problem. That is a you problem. That is not a me problem. I am so sorry. But here's another thing that I've learned about being in the business. Other people's opinions of me are none of my business.
Yep.
I shouldn't be. And then people have said this. I've been on sets where people are like, "Oh, I was talking to the director and they mentioned," and I said, "You know what? I don't want to know." Because I know who I am, and what you're about to say to me is either going to boost my ego in a way that may not be the best, or completely shatter the foundation that I've built. I've taken months to build to get here. I'm not interested. Thank you so much for mentioning it. Hurry off and then find the supports and the people who love you, who are in your corner, and they're the ones who are going to hold you and say, "Listen, sweetheart, you're amazing. You take that spotlight, because that spotlight was meant for you in that moment." You took it, and you did a great job.
I'm learning the importance of surrounding myself by people, by like-minded people, because there are so many people. I'm coming to learn that your average person, not saying there aren't just some mean-spirited people in the world, but your average person is not just a vindictive, out to purposefully cut everybody else down type person. In their minds, they're trying to be helpful, or they're, you know, whatever. Because every single person in the world has their idea of who you should be and what you should be doing. And every single one of them will tell you everybody else means well, but you really should be doing this. You know, so at some point you have to go, okay, I've got to stop listening to everybody else, and what is my gut telling me? Who am I in this? And I'm realizing that I'm surrounded by people that love me, that I love them, but I'm not surrounded by people that are on the same wavelength that I am. So I'm struggling against that rather than having the support and room to grow, because I'm not surrounded by people that are on the same plane that I am. It's hard to grow in that. And I'm like, okay, I need to find my group.
If those people you got to put up the boundaries with, and the people that you find that, and there may just be a few people out there. I know for me, there are just a few people out there that I really trust.
And I feel like that's another thing about society makes it feel like if you only have one or two friends, then you're a loser. Or if you're not a part of like the popular group, and you don't have like a big posse all around you, that you're not popular or not important.
I don't know much about TikTokers, but my guess, because being in Hollywood, most of the people who are like, "Oh my God, how is LA?" Like, they're like in your face, kind of like assessing the situation. They're evaluating you and your friendship and your connection, whereas the people that really matter are the ones that were there before any of that started, who just instinctively go, "Oh my gosh, how are you? How is LA? How can we talk about this? And then but also to say this, you have not yet met the people who will love you the most later on in your life, because you have to think of your life in sections. I read this weird article years ago that's always stuck with me. That was, your true soulmates are your siblings. And I'm like, no way are my brother and myself soulmates. Thank you so much for the suggestion. But the idea is that your sibling is the only person who's going to be in every phase of your life next to you. So your parents are there for childhood, early adulthood, and then they pass away. Your partner's there for early adulthood, like when you're older, but your sibling is there for every single age. And I think that the people, and that's a really good perspective, that the people who truly will love you the most during the next phase or during this phase, you may have not even met yet. So don't evaluate your self-worth based on the people you've already interacted with, because a lot of people also don't necessarily have your self-interest as a priority. They don't really, and it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with their own issues and their own lack of empathy.
I had a conversation. I ran into a girl that I used to hang out with. Since she got a boyfriend, we haven't stayed as much in touch. You know, she's been wrapped up with him. But I ran into her in a store the other day, and yesterday actually. And we were talking, and I was like, you know, I'm having a hard time just finding, like, I love my church and stuff, but I'm like, I don't fit in. I have a hard time finding people that I click with and whatever. And she was like, you know what? I was like, you know, it makes you start wondering what's wrong with me. Like, why does nobody like me and whatever? And she was like, no. She was like, stop thinking that way. She was like, because when you get away from this group of people, I'm really big, like with Mayberry crowd and stuff. I have so many friends. I have so many adopted dads. I was at the Mayberry meetup in North Carolina a couple of weeks ago, and literally had like 3 or 4 guys introducing me as their daughter. You know, like there's so many adopted dads in this group, and just so many people that have taken me under their wing and stuff. And she was like, you know, when you get around people like that, you make friends and you fit in and whatever. She was like, the problem is not with you, it's the people you're around. She was like, so stop wondering what's wrong with you. And I was like, good point. You know? So yeah.
No, I fully agree with her.
But I mean, I was one point I made a while ago about, you know, looking for girls that are kind of like me, who get labeled as loud or weird or too quiet, or, you know, all these kinds of stuff. I kind of gravitate towards them because almost since I've been through that part of my life, might still be going through some of it. I mean, not as much as I was whenever I was younger. I kind of gravitate towards them. Like, I have one friend who she's about to turn 18. She's kind of like me. She's kind of labeled as the weird girl. Her dad travels a lot, so she doesn't really stay a whole lot in the same areas a long time. In fact, they're moving back to they're moving to a different part of Texas after just moving to Texas, their old home in Texas. And, you know, she doesn't really have a whole lot. She doesn't have really many friends because of her moving around a lot. And then adding the element of always being the new kid. And then, you know, all that. So I've been helping her a lot with just being like, be okay with being the new kid. You know, use that to your advantage. You know, assess people. Use that because of the fact that you don't know them. Get a real perspective of who they are by watching them. Observe them with other people. You know, don't rush into trying to get into this group. Like, oh, this group seems fun. Let me squeeze in here. Let me find someone, an open window to crawl into. No, observe how they are. Because 9 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, there's probably a snake in that garden, and you're going to be the one that gets bit. You got, like, I just told her, like, because I've been through that kind of different things, because I moved schools a good bit. And so I know what it's like to be the new kid and get automatically labeled as the weird, quiet girl because you don't really talk. But I use that to my advantage. I'm like, yeah, I may be the weird, quiet girl, but I know who you are. Because I've been over here quietly reading a book in the corner. I've been seeing you stab your friend in the back. Because I've overheard you over here talking about her to someone else, you know. And it's like, you know, be okay with who you are and you know, if it, you know, it,
I
like,
mean,
don't let them label you, but at the same time, let that label be an advantage to you at the same time. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, you know, but in my experience, it wasn't a bad thing that I was labeled as the quiet, weird girl.
I really don't like labels in general. I think everyone shifts from interpersonal relationship to what I learned in therapy. You shift your energies and intentions from the person you are with your mom or your dad or your uncle or whomever is different, completely different than the person you are with your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your sibling or your best friend or your boss. So you have to acknowledge that you are multifaceted, there are many sides of you. And that's kind of a wonderful, exciting thing, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to be complex, and
Right.
you don't necessarily have to. I don't know where I was going with that. I lost my train of thought. But it happens.
We've done that so many times on
That's
here.
okay.
We've done that so many times. But no, you're
Yeah.
right. I mean, don't like, yeah, I don't like labels either. I guess because it happened so much in my life, my mom just kind of told me, like, you know, don't take those labels to heart. You know,
I remember now what I was going to say. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're okay. You can go ahead.
But you could easily label me as the girl who interrupts everyone. But it's also, I'm you know, but it's one of those things where it simplifies a very complex moment, right?
Mm.
You could say you're the loud one, or I could easily say, no, you're really enthusiastic and you have zest and you're excited about the conversation. You know, like you are meeting, and where I'm coming from is I'm meeting you at that level. Whereas some people will go, oh my gosh, no. Like I can't interact with this energy without feeling threatened. So
Right.
I'm going to judge you and again put a cap on your
Right. No, you're
Mm.
put a spin on the label. Like, okay, you may see it as being loud and obnoxious or whatever, but I see it as me being enthusiastic and being excited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You didn't know you were in for a therapy session when you came on here, did you?
No, absolutely not. I love it. Though.
I become a
I
therapist.
love it. Right.
There you go.
There you go. There's another thing to add to the list.
There you go.
Tool in the
There you
toolbox.
go.
Do you
Yeah.
have any more questions about When Calls the Heart that you want to cover, or do you want to talk about other things? What do you ladies feel like?
Did you do any chemistry reads whenever you got casted as Julie, or did you automatically get casted from that one self-tape?
Very quick turnover. I have done chemistry reads for other parts, but no, not for Julie. It was a very quick turnover. I literally got cast. I did a self-tape, and then I got cast and I was filming within a week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, and you and Erin have really great chemistry. So I was just kind of wondering about that because, you know, people talk about chemistry reads, like, you know, you hear about the story between her and Daniel's chemistry read, and then, you know, different ones, other chemistry reads and stuff. But yeah, you and Erin have such a good, that sisterly chemistry. So I was wondering about that.
Thank you. I think we're just lucky. I think that Erin is just such a lovely, and I feel like when I first came onto set, Erin invited me to have lunch with her in her trailer, and we just had a good chat, and she was just so open. So I've been on a lot of shows. No, I've been on a lot of shows where the leads or the people up top aren't necessarily very kind or open. They're kind of whatever, living in their ego minds, or living in this world where it's like I'm just doing my own work. I don't want to be interacted with in this moment. Erin is the polar opposite. She is just like, oh my gosh, let's have a conversation, and like, what have you? And like, I'll come back like season 5, and she'll be like, what are you up to? I saw on your Instagram this thing. Can we talk about that for 10 minutes? And it's just like, okay. She's so lovely. So I feel like every time we have those moments of wonderful chemistry on screen, it's because it's just how we are off screen as well. She's very
That's so nice.
I think I've heard somebody describe her as kind of the mother on set, where she just kind of like gathers the whole brood to her. You know, just kind of that's just the person that she is.
I am thoroughly impressed with her ability to, and I mean, because her character is a teacher, but I worked with her in season 5 in front of the classroom, gathering all, because they're actually children. They're not just children actors. They're children. So you're trying to, like, it's like herding cats trying to get attention sometimes, because they've been on set for 5 or 6 hours. They're tired. They're hungry. Like they want a break, but they've been sitting there for 20 minutes in the hot sun and they're a little squirmy. And Erin is just able to get everyone's attention and just get the scene done. And you're just like, Erin, how did you do that? That's amazing. And I admire her as a person, not just as an actor, because she's a phenomenal actor, like one of the best actors I've worked with, but just as a person, she's able to just like completely take control of a situation, but in a way that isn't
in a loving way,
that isn't like kind of scary or like, oh, I need to be the center of attention. It's very much just like, hi guys, let's have a focus, let's do this. And you're just like, hey, that's impressive. And I wish that I would eventually be able to do that myself. I've observed a lot of really wonderful moments with Erin. So yeah.
What do you think, like, what would your dream project be? Like, would you create your own show or movie or something to star in, or like produce or direct or whatever? Or, you know, what would your dream role be?
I would love, and I can say this now, I think, because it didn't happen, but I would love to be on a sci-fi series for an extended period of time. I think sci-fi shows are absolutely amazing. I was being considered for Star Trek, and I didn't get the part, but I was being considered for a part for this new series, and I was absolutely.
Yeah, that would be really cool to do something like that. So do you have anything in
I'm a
the
sci-fi nerd myself, so.
But then also to have it be sort of set, because it's a lot of acting challenges to be set in space settings where you have to work with a green screen or possibly prosthetics. I find that really wonderful. Then what I really love about acting is, besides getting to do really interesting work, because I would love, like, and that's one of the thrills of auditioning. People will be like, well, you auditioned so many times, doesn't it get a little boring? It's like, no, not at all. Like, I love getting auditions. I love working those acting muscles every week. But then being able to do a performance that then translates to a fan base. Years ago, when X-Files was getting a reboot, I auditioned for X-Files. I had a bunch of callbacks for X-Files as well. So that was another one where I was like, I really hope I get this. I really hope I get this, because the fan base is already built in. And then you'd know that you'd have that immediate support from people. One of the reasons why I feel so blessed to be in Realm One Calls the Heart. You get that immediate response from the fans and from the people who are watching at home. And I feel really lucky to be able to interact either through podcasts and people get to watch this, or getting to message people directly. I really feel that's like sort of like an additional cherry on top of acting, is that you get that interaction with people who resonates with them.
Right. Yeah, because I know, like, if you, like, no matter what, like, I know different, like, I'm a big fan of a lot of people that are on Hallmark. Like, I'm a big fan of Erin. I'm a big fan of, like, different ones. But, like, anytime that I hear that they may not be doing something for Hallmark, like, for instance, Kevin McGarry did Heartland, and he also did this other show. Like, I'm a big fan of his. So, like, I was like, oh, well, I mean, he's on this show. I wonder how that show is. So I checked it out because of him being on there. So, like, that fan base, even though I watched you on When Calls the Heart, and I know you mainly as Julie, you know, I like your character so much and I like you as an actor so much. I want to go check out what else you have done, or, you know, what you've got coming up. It kind of like, even though you've met out of this particular fan base, they will follow you to your other projects. So I get why you would want to be a part of that.
It's just a wonderful gift to the career. And I mean, like, I love every part I audition for. I really do. I've only turned down. I was talking to my friend Hannah yesterday. We touched base, and she was talking about turning down roles. And I said, there's only been 2 instances where I got an audition where I said, I'm not going to do this. Sorry. Every other for 12 years, every other audition I've gotten, I've just been like, or I've received, I've just been like, this is a gift. And I'm so excited to step into this person's shoes. And that's the thing with Julie. I've been wearing her shoes for 10 years.
A whole decade.
Wonderful. Isn't that wild?
It's crazy. It really is.
When Calls the Heart, their 100th episode is coming up. So that's so exciting.
I love that even though you haven't been on screen every single season, I love that there are still mentions of Julie that bring her into the show even though she's not there, you know, and still make her so in the moment, I guess, you know, where it wouldn't seem like an odd thing to bring her back. You know, it wouldn't seem like, oh, she's been gone for however long. You know, it's like, oh, she's finally back. You know, like it would be more of a reunion than well, y'all had to come up with some storyline, didn't you? You know, like, you know, I just felt like it would be so natural because she has stayed so relevant in the show. And obviously to the
I get excited when she gets mentioned because I'm like, ooh, is this like, you know, like especially with like the book, like her mentioning that she wrote Julie into her book. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, you know, her getting mentioned like that. Like we were even getting excited because Abigail got mentioned, or because this one got mentioned, or that even though they haven't been on the like they mentioned Dottie a couple of times, and Dottie hasn't been on since like what, season 3, season 2.
Yeah, it's been a while. I don't remember.
It's been a long time, like early seasons as well. And so like when different ones from the very beginning get mentioned, you kind of get that excitement because you're like, oh, I remember when she was on the show. I remember when this happened, or whenever it was like this. And you know, it is exciting, and it does keep that memory in that. Yeah, it like Kerri says, it makes it so simple for you to just waltz back into Hope Valley and it be totally normal.
Very easy to waltz back in.
So, well, we know Julie likes to make a grand entrance.
Yes, she'll always. If I were to ever come back, I would be so excited. Of course, I would love to play Julie again. I would just feel very honored to be able to be stepping back into this universe.
Yeah. Do you have any other projects going on right now, or anything you can talk about? Talk about anything. Yeah.
Way. I have I did an episode of Mayday, which is this really wild show where essentially it talks about plane crashes and why they happened. So I had worked in about a year, and that was the first role I got after my TV movie I did right before COVID. And it was really interesting. It was just so bizarre being back on set, but wearing your mask the whole time, and then taking it off right when they say action. So that was really fun. And my character's the reason. This is a real plane crash. It was the worst plane crash that has ever happened in Portugal. My character was the reason the plane crashed. So I'm so sorry, man. Like I feel like I've never been an antagonist or like a bad character, but I was a bad guy on this episode. So, and it wasn't like she did it intentionally, but she was the reason, one of the reasons the plane crashed. So I did Mayday. I don't know when it's going to air. I also have been doing a lot of flower designs, which you can like to follow my flower design page. It's Charlotte. Oh my gosh, I should know this.
This would be me. Like, seriously.
Charlotte's Garden Floral. It was originally my last name as well, and I took that out. But it's Charlotte's Garden Floral, and I post pictures of my beautiful designs that I put on there. I also have been doing a lot of writing. So about a year, almost only a year ago in August. So about a year ago, I started writing short stories and poems. And I have since then published them into little zines, which are if you don't know what a zine is, they're a homemade magazine. And my is after I publish, I'm going to do a series of 5. After I publish five of them self-publish, I'm going to see if I can get them published into a book.
That would be great.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
So I'm doing 5 because there's 5 stages of grief.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is called It's Taken Years, and then the second one's called It's Taken Months, and then the one I'm just finishing now is called It's Taken Weeks, and then the one I'm working on now, moving forward, is called It's Taken Days, and then the last one will be called It's Taken Minutes.
Oh, that sounds so good. I love that.
I love that.
Once you can either purchase the original, I'm only printing like 25 of each of the originals. So, or no, 50. Sorry, 50. I was originally going to do 25, but then I got a lot of demand for them, so I'm publishing 50 of them.
Oh, that's great.
But if you want to get one of the originals, you're more than welcome to message me on Instagram, and I'll try and send them to you. And if not, then when I get my book published, I will let everyone know, and I'll put them out. Would you like to hear one of my?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's have a look. So this one is so it's a collection. So just so you know, it's like a short story or a poem with like a piece of artwork next to it. Mm-hmm. So there's like flowers, there's my wall hangings that I've made. Everything in the piece, in the zine are made by me, and there's also pictures of me when I was young. That's me and my mom.
Oh,
love it.
So let's see. Okay, so this one's a good one. This one is about my therapist. So don't tell my therapist. Called The Chase. The words started stumbling out of my mouth so fast that I couldn't keep up. Tripping over one another in a frenzy of mispronunciations and incorrect grammar, their manner was harsh and their pauses sparse. However, he never flinched, never looked away, never interrupted my raging train of thought, so he had been taught to listen. It took months of silence and avoided glances to become comfortable with my secrets. Not that he wasn't ready to hear them. I just could never find the words. They had been resting. Maybe they knew that one day they would be running this marathon.
I like that.
Chase,
it's very pretty.
Chase just happens to be the name of my therapist. So
There you go.
Yeah, so they're just little art projects, and they're fun. And if you'd like to, and like again, like, and so my aunt the other day, she was like, "Oh, that's so interesting. What inspired you to write about grief?" And I was like, "My 20s." Quite blunt. My 20s, I went through a lot. So those.
I legit have been telling people lately, I really wish people would stop trying to tell me these are the best years of my life when I feel like I'm going through hell right now. Okay, because if this is the best it's going to get, I'm not so sure I want to see the rest of it. And I'm just like, I think people forget how hard it is to be in your 20s, and you are going through so much change. There's so much expectation on you, and you feel like you're letting everybody down, and you know, you feel a lot of expectation. I remember one of the dads, or my church used to do, before COVID, there was a group of young adults that would get together and we would have Bible study and, you know, play games and whatever. I remember asking one of the dads that they hosted one night, and I was like, why do people your age expect people my age to have it all together when you're sitting there at 50 telling me you don't have it all together? And he was like, well, I guess every parent hopes their child will have it better than them. And I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. But I don't know if y'all realize this or not. Y'all are scaring the living daylights out of us. You know, I'm like, but I think a huge realization for me was one day when I went, you know what, there is never going to be a point in life where you have it all figured out and it's smooth sailing from here, because life is constantly changing. You grow, you evolve as a person. My poor mom, with me growing up, I would like change overnight and not tell anybody. So she would like have just figured out how to handle me in the stage that I was in. Okay, perfect example. I was quite the tomboy growing up. I did not want my hair fixed. I rode 4-wheelers, rode 3-wheelers, went hunting with the guys. Like I was a tomboy. And all of a sudden I hit around 11 and I started crying in the car one day. and she finally just pulled over in a parking lot. And you could tell she was like trying very hard to stay calm with me because she had it at this point. And she's like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "My ears aren't pierced." Like, I'm crying because I was wanting to wear earrings and my ears weren't pierced. And she's like, "Kerri, why didn't you just say you wanted to get your ears pierced?" Like I was the person that never communicated stuff, but, she would, just as every stage of life changes, there's never a steady anything in life. Everything is constantly changing and evolving. So this myth that we're supposed to figure it all out and have it all together is exactly that. It's a myth, and it's a pressure that should not be put on us and that we should not put on ourselves. But to just come to accept it's constantly changing, and it's okay to not have it figured out because it's going to change tomorrow anyway. And to stop putting that pressure on myself was a huge thing for me to do. I did want to throw this in there, just a fun thought when you were mentioning the titles of your zines. The first book that I self-published, I co-wrote it, but it's called Love in the Rain. And then the second one I wrote by myself, it's called Love Grows. And then if I ever get the time to work on the third one, because I'm hoping to turn it into a 5-book series, it'll be called Love in War, a play on like love and war, but it'll be set in World War I. But anyway, so just all the titles going together was making me think of that and putting that together. But
I have everything you just said. Oh my gosh, it was wonderful. I definitely think that there's something about writing that's therapeutic, and I'm very excited. I would love to read what you've written.
I would be happy. Well, I can actually read you a paragraph because I have it on my phone here. It started out, me and another Hardy co-wrote the first one. And it started out kind of somewhat as a fan fiction for When Calls the Heart, but not exactly in the sense of that it was not Jack and Elizabeth. It was, it was its own story, and but it was like Mountie teacher thing. And then by the time we finished the first book, we were like, okay, actually, I want to keep this story going. Yeah. So I kept that going, and I am not finding the exact one. One of my favorite quotes from the sequel was this older lady is like giving advice to the young teacher. And she says, "My dear, love has no boundaries. It cannot be limited by time or distance or place, nor can it be limited only to certain people. That is the magic of love. It climbs mountains and crosses oceans and walks through the lowest valley in fair and stormy weather. It only grows. Love never fails." That's like some wisdom that this lady is imparting to her. And I'm trying to find a specific thing because my favorite portion of it, found it. Last paragraph of the second book. I'm like, okay, it's in there somewhere. But this is the last paragraph of the second book. It says, "Love is a shelter, a firm foundation against the storms of life that loom on the horizon. But true love cannot be shaken. The seed comes from the heart of God and is planted deeply in the hearts of those who will accept it. As it grows, its roots become firm in the ground, and it will not be shaken by the forces that come against it." And I'm like, people aren't going to necessarily catch it, but it's actually foreshadowing, because like in the story, there's actually a thunderstorm rolling up, so the storm on the horizon, but foreshadowing the storm on the horizon is World War I. That will be coming up. So yeah. So I struggle with words. So I believe you said something a minute ago about writing kind of being therapeutic. And for me, I struggle with words. My mom would get so mad. I'm like, listen, I can think it here, I can feel it here, I cannot get it to come out here. It's like there's some kind of block here. I can't get it to come out. So when I can write, it's like I can express myself in a deeper way than I know how to verbally. And it just kind of allows me to share a part of my heart that I don't know how to share otherwise. But yeah. So if I could get the time and just just sit down and write. People are always like, take that 15 minutes in between this, and this. I'm like, okay, that does not work for me. I'm like, I need like an entire day uninterrupted, leave me alone and let me get in my space, get in my groove and just write. That's what I need. But yeah, I've got several scripts I'm supposed to be working on and several books I'm supposed to be working on, whatever. So yeah, pretty much the ideas are endless. It's just a matter of actually getting to do it. Now I'm curious. I'm seeing the light on your face. I'm curious. What time is it where you're at?
I'm in Vancouver. It's 6:30.
Okay. I was just curious about the time.
It's like almost 8:30 here. 8:30 p.m.
Yeah, so it's 9:30 for me. But yeah, I was just curious like what time zone you were in. So.
Can I show you something today at a vintage store? And I thought it was something that Julie would buy.
Yeah.
Can I show you?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's gorgeous.
That is so cute.
Or a change purse, and you put it on your hand. It's just so delicate and sweet. And I just, as soon as I saw it, I just said, I think this is something that Julie would wear.
Yeah, absolutely. That's gorgeous. I love vintage stuff.
Oh yeah, same.
I love it. So yeah,
I can see that being good for like a party or something where you like don't need to you need something with you.
Slip your card and your ID in, and that's good.
I think it's just for ID and possibly some lipstick. I think that's all it's going to cover. It's very slender, but yeah. And
I love that.
Thank you both so much for chatting and for sharing. I thank you so much for sharing your beautiful writing. I can't wait to actually read it personally. Like I'd love to get a copy and to have a look.
I'll message you after this and get shipping info, and I'll send you a copy.
Fantastic. I would love to buy one. And I know that people have been asking me about my zines. I think if you'd like an original copy, message me on Instagram and I'll try and get you one. If you want to wait until the anthology becomes a book, then I'll actually like make more of a post about that as well once it's all done. But it's still a work in progress, as we all are. And can I actually say one more poem?
Absolutely.
Is that okay?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Before we leave, is there anything? Wait, before I do this, is there anything else that you want to ask me?
I think all of our questions that we had down were good. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, you're welcome to share anything you want to share. Like we. So.
Yes. Okay. So this poem I've been working on memorizing and reciting. It's one of my favorites that I've written. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This now I've forgotten the first line.
It's okay. It's a work in progress, like we all are. It's okay.
Yeah, that would totally be me. Yep, go for it.
We were only a love vignette, a chapter of blushing cheeks and racing hearts, both torn apart in haste to remove. I'll do it one more time. We were only a love vignette, a chapter of blushing cheeks and racing hearts, both torn apart in haste. To erase you from the rest of our story was as easy and as hard as tearing a page out of my favorite book. I mistook your prologue as our epilogue and your limerick as our sonnet. The moment I judged your cover, I should have known that paper cuts would turn to blood and guts and you would never be my own. You were never meant to hurt me, but you never meant to stay. You were with me only briefly, and when you went away, you were still fingering my pages and holding close your spine. May they remind me of a time when you were briefly mine.
Oh my God. Wow. It's amazing.
The other day, my dad, who's a scientist, he's like, love is a book. Got it. And I was like, yes. Thanks, Dad.
I love that.
That was amazing. I love the imagery of that. That was.
Yeah, you can just see it. Just picture.
Thank you so much. And all of those so it has to do with grief and love and pain and losing and longing, and that's sort of what my writing is about. And I feel like sun is telling me that I've got to put on some sunglasses or something.
Oh my. Well, if you want to hang around for just a second, we'll go ahead and close this out, but then we'll talk for just a second before you actually leave. But thank you so much for having us on. I know everybody's going to love hearing from you. I know you're very beloved in the Hardy world and otherwise, but I know everybody loves seeing you and hearing from you. And fingers crossed, Julie gets to come back sometime. Because we would love nothing more.
I'd keep my fingers crossed too. And can I take a picture of us?
Yes, absolutely.
Would that be weird?
No.
It's going to be a video, so can everyone like do a peace sign or hey? Okay, perfect.
Yay!
On Instagram, and everyone will know to watch.
Awesome. That is so great. Well, thank you so much, Charlotte, for coming on with us. Like I said, hang around with us for just a second after we end this. But Morgan, did you have anything else to say, or Charlotte, before we leave?
No, just thank you so much for accepting our offer to come on and share all your beautiful art and work and poems. They're beautiful. I can't wait to get a hold of the books or even the original copies. They sound amazing, and thank you so much for spending your time with us. It was a great honor.
Printed off my printer at home, so the book will be a little bit more exciting, but these will be fun if you want them because they're gonna like come directly from my printer. But it was so nice chatting with both of you. You're both so lovely, and really nice chatting not just about When Calls the Heart, although that was great, but chatting about everything else as well. And I'm excited to just to also get into other things that you two have been working on. It's really wonderful.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes, and you are welcome anytime. Heck, if you want to just come on, if you want to just have somebody to chat, message us and go, hey, we're there.
Yeah, and maybe whenever your book comes out, we can have another chat and you can really go deep into the book. Yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
We'll love that.
Yes. All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys, and we will be back again as soon as we can. No promises. Y'all know me and Morgan. We're going to try, but we're so excited to finally get Charlotte on. Heck, we've been talking about this for at least a year of having her on. So we're working it, guys. But anyway, we love you guys, and we'll talk again soon. Bye.